The distress beacon hit Lieutenant Cal Ryder's scanner at 0300 hours, and he was already pulling on his suit before the second ping fired. No clearance. No backup. The nearest Allied vessel was 11 hours out, and whatever was burning on the surface of Karath 7 was burning now. He punched through the atmosphere in a drop shuttle the size of a coffin, heat tiles screaming, and landed in a clearing that smelled like scorched copper and something older. Something alive. The wreckage spread across a quarter-mile of violet grass. A civilian transport, small, single-family class, Zathali Registry. Cal recognized the hull markings before he hit the ground. Zathali, one of the 7 species under the Galactic Accord's protection status, which meant every person on that ship had diplomatic weight behind their name, which also meant every person on that ship was currently dying in a field, and he was the only human for 40 million kilometers. He ran toward the largest section of wreckage with a fire suppressor in one hand and a medkit in the other. The first body he found was already gone. Adult female, Zathali, silver-scaled, tall, a species that stood nearly 8 feet when healthy. She had shielded something beneath her with her own body. Cal registered this in about half a second and kept moving. The second section of wreckage was a pressurized nursery pod, still sealed, still intact, still beeping. He ripped the emergency latch with both hands, and the lid blew off with a pressure release that threw him back 2 steps. Inside, wrapped in thermal mesh and making no sound at all, was the smallest living thing Cal had ever held in his hands. A Zathali infant. Maybe 3 months old by their developmental calendar. Silver-scaled like her mother, with tiny gill slits along her jaw that opened and closed as she breathed recycled pod air. Her eyes, when she opened them, were the color of deep water. Not blue, not green. Something that had no human name. Her oxygen saturation was at 61%. Cal did not think. He pulled his own breather mask off his face, configured it to passive flow instead of filtered, and pressed it over her small face with both thumbs holding it steady. Then he held her against his chest with his left arm and used his right to get the med kit open one-handed. The next 40 minutes were not something he would describe to people afterward. Not because they were violent, because they were terrifying in the way that only helpless things can terrify you. The way a small life depending entirely on your hands and your knowledge and your refusal to get it wrong makes every second feel like a held breath. He got her oxygen up to 89%, not perfect. Enough. She fell asleep against his chest, with her small clawed fingers gripping the collar of his flight suit. And Cal sat in the violet grass of Karath 7, surrounded by wreckage, and held an alien baby and watched the twin moons rise. Because there was nothing else to do until the rescue shuttle came. The rescue team arrived at 0611. 3 Zathali emergency responders in white suits, and 1 human Galactic Accord liaison named Pete Dalio, who looked at Cal sitting in the grass with an infant pressed to his chest and said absolutely nothing for a full 10 seconds. "She's stable," Cal said. "Oxygen was the issue. I rigged the breather. She's been asleep for about 2 hours." Pete Dalio sat down in the grass next to him. "The rest of the transport?" "4 adults, all gone before I landed." Pete was quiet for a moment. "She's the only survivor." "Yes." The Zathali responders moved through the wreckage with the trained silence of people who had done this before. One of them approached Cal with the careful, measured posture of someone trying not to startle an animal, and held out her arms. Cal looked down at the small silver face against his chest, the clawed fingers still hooked into his collar. He unhooked them gently, 1 finger at a time, and transferred her. She made a sound in her sleep, something between a click and a hum, and the Zathali responder's expression shifted in a way that Cal could not read, and she walked toward the medical shuttle without looking back. Pete Dalio filed the incident report. Cal was listed as first responder, single survivor recovery, species-appropriate emergency care administered. Commendation recommended. Cal went back to his posting, filed his own report, ate a meal he did not taste, slept 4 hours. 3 weeks later, a priority communication arrived at his station, marked with the seal of the Zathali High Council. Cal stared at it for a moment before opening it, because priority communications from planetary high councils did not typically arrive for lieutenants who were not diplomats and had not done anything particularly political. The message was brief. The child's name was Vethna Sorel. She was the last surviving member of the Sorel lineage, which held a position in Zathali culture that Cal's translation software described as something between nobility and sacred trust. Her 4 dead family members had been her parents and her 2 older siblings. The message informed him that Vethna Sorel had been asking for him. It did not explain how an infant 3 months old asked for anything specific enough to be understood. The message also informed him that Veth's maternal aunt, her closest surviving adult relative, had formally requested his presence on the Zathali homeworld to receive the family's acknowledgement of his actions. The aunt's name was Serin Na Sorel. Cal's commanding officer, Major Dana Cole, read the message over his shoulder and said, "You need to go. It's a social visit, it's not. A last surviving member of a noble lineage whose life you saved is asking for you by name at 3 months old, and her family is formally requesting your presence. Cal." Dana Cole had the tone of someone explaining rain to a person standing in it. "You need to go." He went. The shuttle to the Zathali homeworld took 9 hours. Cal spent most of it reading everything his console had on Zathali culture, lineage customs, and what the term his translation software kept rendering as life debt actually meant in practice. By hour 7, he closed the file. He was not ready for what it meant in practice. The capital city of the Zathali homeworld was built vertically, towers of pale stone that caught light and scattered it in patterns that made Cal feel like he was walking inside a prism. The air was cooler than Earth standard and smelled of mineral water and something floral. The streets were wide, and the Zathali who moved through them were tall and silver and moved like water. Every single one of them stopped when his escort walked him through. Not hostility, not curiosity. He's something quieter than both. His escort, a young official named Vel, leaned toward him and said very low, "They know who you are." The story moved fast. "I did not do anything extraordinary," Cal said. Vel looked at him with an expression that said Cal was wrong about that. The Sorel residence was a tower near the center of the city. Cal was brought to a reception hall with high windows and pale light, and a floor that felt like standing on still water. He stood in the center of the room and waited, and the doors at the far end opened, and Serin Nas Sorel walked toward him. She was tall, as all Zathali were. Silver-scaled, deep-water eyes. A stillness to the way she moved that made Cal think of a person who had learned to hold grief like cargo. Balanced, controlled, not put down. She stopped 3 feet from him. "You held my niece for 4 hours with your own oxygen on her face," she said. Her saturation was dropping. Cal said, Yes?" Another silence. "She is asking for you," Serin said. "She cannot speak yet, but she reaches for you, for your scent, for whatever impression you left on her." She paused. "Infants of our kind do not do this with strangers. They do not form this attachment. It has not happened in recorded history with a member of another species." Cal did not know what to say to that. Serena Sorrel looked at him with the deep water eyes and said, "I would like you to meet her." A door to the side opened, and a caretaker walked in, carrying Vethna Sorrel, who was awake and alert and whose small silver head turned the moment Cal was in her line of sight, with an immediacy that made the caretaker stumble. The infant made the sound he had heard in the grass, the click hum, and she reached both small clawed arms straight toward him. Cal crossed the room without deciding to. His feet just went. He took her, and she grabbed his collar with both hands and pressed her face against his jaw. And the click hum became something longer and lower, and the entire room went very, very still. Serena Sorrel watched this, and Cal, with an alien infant tucked against his face like she was trying to climb inside his heartbeat, looked up and found an expression on Seren's face he could not name. Not gratitude, not grief. Something that was its own thing entirely. Cal stayed 3 days on the Zathali homeworld because Vethna Sorrel would not allow otherwise. That was the only honest way to say it. Every time the caretakers tried to settle her for the night, and Cal moved toward the guest quarters, she made a sound that was not distress exactly, more like a sound that said, "Wrong direction." The caretakers looked at him. He looked at the caretakers. He slept in the chair next to her room with the door open. Serena Sorrel found him there at dawn on the second morning, sitting with Veth asleep in the crook of his arm and a half-read datapad balanced on his knee. She sat across from him, and for a while, neither of them said anything. "She does this with no one else," Saren said finally. "Not even me. And I am her blood." "I was the first voice she heard when she was not dying," Cal said. "Probably. We do not believe that is all of it." He looked up, and Saren was watching him with an expression that had layers in it. "Our biologists have been consulted. There is a phenomenon in our young, a bonding imprint. It is rare. It requires a specific combination of scent chemistry, voice resonance, and a particular quality of calm under fear. We believe it is a survival mechanism from our oldest history. The infant chooses the person her body has identified as safe." Cal looked down at Veth. Veth's clawed fingers were wrapped around his thumb. "She chose you," Saren said. "There is no unchosing it. Our biologists say it is neurologically permanent." The room was quiet for a moment. "What does that mean, practically?" Cal asked. "It means she will look for you. It means distance will register as threat to her system until she is old enough to understand it cognitively. It means whoever raises her will need you involved." "And who is raising her?" "I am," Saren said. "She is the last of our line. She is my responsibility. She is also." Something moved across Saren's face that was not diplomatic and not controlled. "She is all I have left of my sister." Cal did not say anything. Grief that size did not need commentary. "I am not asking you to give up your posting," Saren said. "I am asking if you are willing to visit. Regularly. For her." "Yes," Cal said. It came out immediately. No deliberation. Serena Sorrel looked at him like she was recalculating something. On the third day, the formal acknowledgement ceremony was held. Cal stood in a hall of pale stone with 200 Zathali watching, and Serena Sorrel placed both of her hands over his. Her hands were larger than his, silver-scaled, warm, and spoke words in Zathali that the translator gave him as, "This person carries a debt our family cannot repay, and so we name him instead, among us." The hall made a sound, a low collective hum, the same register as Veth's sound. Cal understood later that it was the Zathali version of an ovation. Afterward, Vel, the young escort, found him in the courtyard and said, with some caution, "You understand what was just said in there?" "I was named among them," Cal said. "The phrase used has not been spoken in that hall in 60 years. It is not a social courtesy. In Zathali law, it makes you a member of the Sorrel House." Cal stared at him. "You are, technically, now of higher social standing on this planet than most of the people in that room," Vel said. "I thought someone should tell you." Pete Dalio, who had attended the ceremony as the Accord liaison and was standing nearby, started laughing in a way that suggested he had known this was coming and had chosen not to warn Cal. Cal looked at Pete. Pete held up both hands. "I am staying out of this entirely." Back on his station, Cal submitted a request to modify his deployment rotation to include regular transit stops near the Zathali homeworld. Major Dana Cole read the request, looked at him across her desk, and said, "So the baby situation became a legal family situation." "It appears so." "And the aunt? What about her?" Dana Cole had an expression. It was a specific expression that Cal recognized as the one she used when she was choosing not to say something obvious. "Approved," she said, and stamped the request. The visits began. Once a month, then twice. Vethna Sorrel grew the way infants grow, fast and sideways, and in directions no one predicted. Her gill slits sealed at 4 months and left faint silver lines along her jaw. She developed opinions. Loud, specific opinions about things that were hers, which included 2 stuffed animals, a particular blanket, and Cal Ryder. She did not share these things. Cal brought her a small model of his drop shuttle on his 4th visit. She held it for approximately 40 seconds before determining it was acceptable, tucked it under her arm, and returned to whatever she had been doing. Saren watched this from across the room with a look Cal was starting to learn to read. It was not the look she wore in formal settings. It was quieter, something she did not appear to know she was showing. On his 6th visit, they ate a meal together after Veth was asleep. Real food, Zathali prepared, which Cal ate with more appreciation than he expected because Zathali cooking was extraordinary. Saren watched him eat with an expression of faint surprise. "You like it," she said. "It is excellent." Most humans find the mineral content overwhelming. Most humans have not been eating station rations for 3 years. She made a sound that was, unmistakably, a laugh. It was brief, and she contained it quickly, but Cal had heard it. He filed it away without showing that he had. They talked for 2 hours. He did not entirely track the topics. Her work, which was civic architecture, his posting, the politics of the Accord, a disagreement she had with a council member, a technical problem he was trying to solve on his shuttle's navigation array. It was not a formal conversation. It was the kind of conversation that had no agenda. He noticed, walking to his guest quarters afterward, that he had not been aware of time passing. On his 8th visit, Veth said his name, or tried to. It came out as Ka with a hard click at the end, which was not exactly Cal but was unmistakably aimed at him. He stopped in the middle of the room. Saren stopped with him. They both looked at Veth, who was extremely pleased with herself about it. "Ka," Veth said again, pointing one small claw directly at him. Cal crouched down to her level. "Yeah," he said. "That is me." She patted his face with both hands. Saren Nasorel, standing behind him, was very quiet for a moment. He turned. She was looking at her niece with an expression that was not complicated at all. It was simple and it was enormous, and it was the kind of thing Cal Ryder did not know what to do with. So he simply noted it and straightened up. "She has your stubbornness," Saren said. "She's 8 months old." "She has decided you are hers," Saren said. "Among our kind, this is not metaphor." Cal looked at her. Saren looked back. Something moved between them that was not said, in the way that the most significant things rarely are. And then Veth hit him on the kneecap with his own shuttle model and demanded attention. He gave her the attention. Saren went to make tea. It was a simple evening. It settled into his bones with the weight of something that had always been there. The 9th visit was different. Cal arrived to find 3 council officials waiting in the entrance hall, and Saren meeting him at the door with a controlled expression that meant she was holding something tight and would explain later. She explained later. The Sorel lineage seat on the Zathali High Council was being challenged. The law was specific. A minor child could not hold a lineage seat. The seat could be preserved only if the child had a recognized guardian who met the criteria of the Sorel house membership. Guardian meaning, in Zathali law, an adult recognized by the house in formal ceremony and willing to stand as parental co-designate for the child until majority. Saren was the guardian. She met every criterion, except one. She had no co-designate. Zathali law required 2. "And the challenge is timed," Cal said. "Yes." Saren's voice was level. "They have submitted a petition. If I cannot name a second guardian within 30 days, the seat reverts to the secondary council line. Ian Veth has no legal standing." "Who is challenging?" "The Narev house. They have wanted the Sorel seat for 40 years. Cal thought about this. "And the second guardian has to be named among the house." Saren looked at him. "Yes." "I was named among you," he said. "In that ceremony. Legally." "Yes." The word hung in the air between them. Saren na Sorel, who had not asked for anything she had not earned, who had held her grief like cargo and her responsibilities like something she would die before setting down, looked at him and said, "I am not asking you to give up your life. I am not asking for more than what is necessary. But if you were willing, yes," Cal said. Saren stopped. "Yes," he said again. Because the first time had been fast and he wanted her to hear it clearly. "File the paperwork. I will sign whatever needs signing." She was quiet for a long moment. "Look, you understand what this means legally?" she said. "It means Veth keeps her seat. It also means you are, by Zathali law, her co-parent, formally, permanently." "I know." Saren looked at him with the deep water eyes that had no human name for their color. "Why?" she said, not doubting, genuinely asking. Cal thought about Veth saying Kea and hitting him with the shuttle model. He thought about a clearing on Kirath 7 and a small clawed hand gripping his collar. He thought about 2 hours of conversation that had no agenda and had felt like something he had been missing for a long time. "Because she is mine," he said. "She picked me. I am keeping it." Saren Nasorel looked at him for a moment. Then she sat down next to him at the table, not across, next to, and opened her datapad. "The paperwork is significant," she said. "Good thing I read fast." They filed it by morning. The Narev house withdrew its challenge 4 days later when the Sorel filing was confirmed. The council record reflected 2 guardians for the minor Veth na Sorel, Saren na Sorel of Zeth and Cal Ryder of Earth. Pete Dalio sent him a message that read only, "Cal." Cal sent back, "Pete. Pete. I need you to understand what you just did legally." Cal, "I understand." Pete. You are a co-parent on a Zathali noble lineage. You have standing in their high council. Your children, if you ever have any, yet inherit Sorel lineage rights. Cal, I know. Pete, she is also. Saren is. Pete, you have met her. Cal did not respond to that one. Major Dana Cole requested a formal meeting and then sat across from him and said, "Walk me through this." I signed as co-guardian for the infant, which makes you a member of a noble house. Technically. With council standing. Technically. Dana Cole looked at him with the expression, the one about obvious things. "Okay, and the aunt?" "She is the aunt." "Right." Dana leaned back. "Cal, I have read the Zathali family law supplemental documentation that our Accord office sent me this morning, which apparently Pete Dalio requested specifically. Are you aware that the co-guardian arrangement, while legally distinct from marriage, carries in Zathali custom the same social weight as Dana?" "Yes." "I am aware," Cal said. Dana Cole held the expression for another 3 seconds. Then she stood, he stamped something on her desk, and said, "Updated deployment schedule is approved. Anything else?" "No." "Good." She moved toward the door and then stopped. "She's a good person." "She is. And the kid sounds like a handful. She hit me with a toy shuttle." Dana Cole smiled, small, genuine. "Go handle your family, Lieutenant." He went. The 31st visit was not like the others. It began as a normal morning. Cal arrived to find Veth in the middle of what Saren called her architecture phase, which meant every object in the lower floor of the residence had been reorganized into structures of her own design. Cal stepped over a tower of books and 3 stacked cooking vessels, and found Veth standing on a low table explaining something to a very patient caretaker in rapid-fire Zathali. She was 2 years old now. She talked constantly. She had opinions about everything. She had Cal's stubbornness and Saren's precision, and a combination of both that made her, in Cal's professional assessment, going to be either a great leader or a significant problem. Probably both. She spotted him across the room and launched herself off the table at him in a way that made the caretaker cover her eyes. Cal caught her. He always caught her. "Kay," she announced into his ear. "Yeah, hi." "I built the council hall," she informed him, gesturing broadly at the destroyed lower floor. "I can see that." "It is accurate." Saren appeared from the kitchen with 2 cups of tea and the expression that Cal had long since learned to read clearly. It was the expression that meant she had slept, and the morning had been reasonable, and he was here. And those 3 things together produced something in her face that she still did not know she was showing. He still noted it every time. They sat on the floor of the council hall, which is to say on Veth's reassigned carpet, and drank tea while Veth narrated the architectural tour. It took 40 minutes and included significant historical detail that she had gotten partly correct and partly from her own imagination. In the afternoon, Saren took a communications call from the council, and Cal sat in the garden with Veth while she examined a row of mineral stones. At one point, she held one up and said, very seriously, "This is yours." "Thank you," Cal said. She examined it a moment more, and then put it in his pocket herself. He left it there. When Saren came back from the call, she sat next to him in the garden, and Veth was occupied. And the afternoon light was doing something with the pale stone of the towers that made everything look like the inside of a prism again. "The council approved the infrastructure proposal," Saren said. "The Eastern District one?" "Yes. 18 months of work." "That is good." She looked at the light. Yes. A moment. Cal, Saren said. Yes. She did not look at him. She looked at the light and the towers, and she said, in the same careful, precise accord standard she had used the day they met, I would like to ask you something. I am aware it is not required. I am aware the legal arrangement is complete as it stands. I am asking because I want to, not because it is practical. Cal waited. I would like you to stay, she said. Not visit, not rotate through. I would like you to be here. With us. With me. She turned and looked at him. I recognize this is significant. I recognize there are things I cannot offer that another arrangement might. I recognize... Saren. She stopped. Yes, he said. The deep water eyes. You have not heard the full... I have been sitting in this garden every fourth weekend for a year and a half, Cal said. I know. She looked at him for a long moment. Something in her face moved, and the things she had not known she was showing, now fully visible, fully acknowledged. You are certain, she said. I am certain. Veth, from 3 feet away, held up a second rock and said, This one is for Saren, and placed it in Saren's hand with great ceremony. Saren looked at the rock, then at Cal. Her mouth moved, the brief, contained laugh that she still tried to catch and still never fully caught in time. He had been filing it away for 18 months. He stopped filing. Cal Ryder transferred his posting to the Accord Station in Zathali orbit 6 weeks later. Major Dana Cole signed off on the transfer with no comment except, Took you long enough? Pete Dalio attended the formal household recognition ceremony and cried, which he denied, and which everyone present witnessed. The ceremony was brief by Zathali standards. Saren Nasorel and Cal Ryder stood in the same pale stone hall where, 2 years earlier, he had been named among the house. Our council elder spoke words that the translator gave him as, What was given without asking is now returned without condition. The hall hummed. Veth Nasorel, held in the arms of her caretaker, said Kea and then Sir, and then pointed at both of them like she was identifying property. She was not wrong. Afterward, in the garden, with the towers catching the late light and Veth asleep against Cal's shoulder with her clawed fingers in his collar. Same grip, always the same grip. Saren Nasorel stood beside him and was quiet. You know what our people say, she said finally. About the ones who hold the young. Vel told me a version of it, Cal said. The long version says that the one who holds the child holds the house. And the one who holds the house holds everything that it is. Cal looked at her. She looked back. I want to be precise, she said. Because I have not been sufficiently in things that matter. What I feel for you is not gratitude. I want you to know that. It stopped being gratitude a long time ago. I know, Cal said. When did you know? He thought about a specific morning, a laugh she had not caught in time, a 2-hour conversation with no agenda, a stone placed in his pocket by a 2-year-old. 8th visit, he said. Saren was quiet for a moment. I was slower, she said. You were careful? Yes. I know that too, he said. Veth shifted in her sleep and made the click hum sound against his shoulder. The twin moons of the Zathali homeworld were rising. Cal Ryder stood in the light of them with a silver-scaled child against his chest, and the woman he had been walking toward since Karath 7 beside him. And the night was cool and mineral and floral, and it was simple. It had always been simple. He had just been far away from it for a while. He was home.